Hey y'all, Organizing Higher, welcome or welcome back. So in this video, I want to talk about what I've done in the past and what I do anytime it comes up when my next actions lists start to get a little bit too long. So I've already talked a lot on this channel about how I have all of my next actions lists are in Todoist. All of my tasks, my next actions are in Todoist. So that's the tool that I'm going to use to demo when I'm talking about my next actions list, and I'll talk about like filters and such. But you can certainly use this same technique with any tool that you're using. It's not exclusive to Todoist. So the first thing that I do when I notice that my next actions lists are getting a bit unruly is I make sure, particularly if I haven't done a weekly review, I make sure that the lists are still accurate. Sometimes I see a lot of stuff on a list, but something is outdated or something I've actually already done, or the project's been canceled or something. So making sure that the next actions list is actually accurate is really helpful and sometimes can help me to get rid of things really quickly. Now, I'm usually pretty good about doing my weekly reviews, but sometimes I don't always get to the point where I'm able to go through my next actions list and make sure that they're relevant and up to date. Or, if I do my weekly review on a Monday and I'm looking at my next actions list on a Thursday, I've added things to it. So it's been a while since I've been able to look at it, and I might have done some things. I might have changed some projects. Stuff might be getting moved or deleted or whatnot. So I just want to make sure that it's accurate. So once I'm sure everything is accurate, then I'm honest about if some things can be moved to someday maybe, particularly things that are like single actions that aren't connected to a project. Is this something that can be moved to someday maybe? Do I really have to do this right now? Do I want to do it or do I have to do it? If that means that I need to renegotiate expectations with someone, hey, originally I said that I was going to be able to get you this draft. Unfortunately, I have other things that have come up and I'm not sure that I'm going to be able to get it to you. Can I either change the scope of the deliverable or change the timing on the deliverable? Can I table it for now? So really renegotiating those expectations externally. Sometimes I have to renegotiate expectations internally because I have put expectations on myself that really I can give myself permission to not feel like I have to do these things. So I've talked before about how, making YouTube videos, I try my best to put out videos consistently, but not at the pace that I was able to do when I first started my channel. So that's an expectation that I have of myself that I post every week. There's not going to be any rioting in the street. People aren't going to necessarily boycott me or anything like that if I don't put out a video every single week, right? So that even if that shows up on my next actions list, I can be honest and say, you know what, that particular project or the task, the project that task is connected to, I can just put that task or that project or both on hold for right now because it's not something that I have the bandwidth for. So being honest and saying whether or not a task that's on my next actions list is actually something I need to do helps me to, number one, learn to make that kind of decision up front when I can. So that way I'm not accepting tasks that I can't actually do if I don't have capacity for that. And number two, it helps me practice saying no to other people and to myself, which can be really hard to do, particularly if maybe you're anti-confrontational or you've got some codependent things going on. It can be really hard to feel like you're allowed to say no to somebody or that you're allowed to say no to yourself without feeling like, oh, they're going to be so disappointed or they're not going to like me or whatever. So then you just take on all this stuff that you can't do. And then the last thing that I do kind of as the final option for very not long next actions lists is I sometimes get really specific on context. So if I have a next actions context for location and I have a next actions list for at computer. So here's the stuff I'm going to do at my computer. And for me, that's the list that's often so long because there's so much stuff that I need to do that involves a computer. And so instead of having just a blanket computer list, I might have a list that's specific to particular applications. So if I need to use, Microsoft Word or Adobe Premiere Pro or whatever the actual tool is that I need to use. Maybe there's a project management tool that you're using, or if you're in Slack, right, you can kind of place those buckets for those individual tools, then you essentially have more next actions lists, but each list is smaller and more manageable. And I find that even if I still have 50 tasks, if I have 10 buckets of 5 tasks each, it's just less scary for me than seeing 50 things on one list. To just see 5 things on a list, even if there's 10 lists, psychologically for me, it makes a difference. Another thing that I do is I differentiate internet. So anything that's on the internet, basic like web browsing, like, oh, I want to look up this recipe, or I want to, look into whatever, like mindless stuff, right? I separate that from internet research. So if I'm researching something on the internet, like, oh, I want to take a trip to Fiji, like, let me figure out what flights are going to look like, or hotels are going to look like, or do I want to stay in a hostel? So even if it's not something that I'm committed to, but I want to kind of like research it per se, it's a different state of mind than if I'm on the internet and I'm browsing for new shoes or something like that. So I separate those tasks, internet research, and then just basic internet like web browsing, so that for me, I don't see this huge long internet list. One other way to do basically that same thing is to combine different contexts. So if I have like a super long computer list and I'm going to break stuff down into, Microsoft Word, right? So computer, Microsoft Word. And maybe there are things that I can do in Microsoft Word that are going to take me, 5 minutes. And there are things that I'm going to do in Microsoft Word that's going to take me 20 minutes. Then I might have separate lists that's like, okay, here's all the stuff I can do in Microsoft Word and in 20 minutes. And you can make a filter. I used to do this, but there's, you can use any kind of online tool. They always have some kind of filtering mechanism, and I could use a filter, and that's my next actions list. It's not just my computer list, it's my 20 minutes at the computer list. And if you've got that much stuff on your next actions lists, I feel like for me, sometimes it's about making it so that there's no resistance to getting those things done. Because if I just see 50 things on a computer list, I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't want to do this. You could go by impact. So if something is high impact or high priority, you could do that. And I know that GTD talks about, not necessarily using priority because priorities change, but even if it's just for the day or for the moment, right? Like, oh gosh, I see this list, this next actions list, it's super long and I want to attack it. So let me just, for now, set priorities for the top 5 things that I want to focus on, or the top 3 things I want to focus on. I think that's okay, as long as you're able to have some flexibility in doing that. So that's how I handle long next actions lists. Definitely share below if you have other techniques that you've used in the past. If you have other ideas for videos that you want me to do in the future, definitely let me know. That way I'm not always trying to think of like, what do people want to know? Like, I don't really know. What do I want to know? Sometimes that's what it is. So thanks so much for watching and have a great week.